Getting ready to fab up the panels for the baggage compartments, the lower baggage compartment, and I got a bunch of pictures and things like that that I collected for inspiration or for ideas on how to do this, to see how it's done. But one of the things I didn't do was take pictures of the lower baggage compartment on the left side of it. I've got lots on the right side, but so as I started figuring this out, I realized that those control cables, there has to be clearance between the sidewalls and the control cables. I got to looking, and I assumed that these panels had came all the way to the outside edge of this tubing here, and after looking at it, I could see that they don't come all the way to the outside of the tubing, that they are approximately an inch or so inside the tubing of the airplane. You'd think they came out to the outside, they'd be supported by this tubing, but they don't. So anyway, a little confusion was there, so I took some string, just some cord, and laid out, run it over. That's where the pulleys for the trim go, that little cluster right there. And so I attached the top one up there, just has a bushing in it. That's for the wire for the trim indicator, and then the bottom two are for the trim cables. So I ran these cables, just strings, and tied them on up here where the trim pulley goes. It's not going to be exact, but it's going to be pretty close. So and then I ran a cable there, the upper one there, focus, damn it, there we go. The upper one there, tied onto that little eye, is for the trim indicator. That's where the spring goes for the trim indicator cable. And then the one right below it is for the flap cable. And the flap cable goes back and goes up to a pulley there behind that little cluster. And then the trim cables, they go through a couple, there's little guide blocks, just phenolic blocks that mount in there, and I've got those, there's one, two of them there, that one. I've just got those duct tape put over those right now to hold them in. So anyway, that'll give me an idea of mounting or getting that aft baggage compartment side panels set up and how much clearance I need. I've taken the trim out of the old fuselage, and I brought it up here and put it in the new fuselage just to give me inspiration to see how it fit, if it fit. And it looks like I can make these work. There might be a little bit of modifications to them. The rear ones there, I'd have to trim them off a little bit on the bottoms of them, because the way it was, the rear baggage compartment floor was loose on the sides, and the panels slipped down in between the floor and the fuselage there, creating a gap. I've got this baggage floor going full width, but it's also got these angles on it here that we can help support the side panels. And let's see here, can't see those. Anyway, they're back here on the back compartment too. See how they go up. Anyway, those support the side panels, so they'd have to trim these back ones up a little bit. This one here on the right side is not going to work the way it is. I could scab something together out of that to make it work, but that old baggage compartment is just not the same as compartment door is just not the same as the new baggage compartment door. So, but this will give me an idea of how to go about and how to make the new panels, the rear panels, made in with the front ones too. Got my first template cut out. This is for the rear bulkhead on this rear baggage compartment. Well, I had it measured out here, so it was 19 1/4 inches, and then I was going to add 3/4 of an inch on each side for the a turn, a flange, like I said. But once I got to remembering about the cables on there, that I couldn't make it full width. So plus the panels are going to go up, the side panels are going to go up and have a reverse bend back to the outside of the airplane, and have flange on them instead of the inside of the airplane like it originally planned. And so it won't all the way be all the way to the edge. It'll be in a little ways from the edge here. So what I did, especially so I could get clearance for these control cables over here. So I've got plenty of clearance for the control cables now. But what I did was I measured the outside distance of the frame from the right side to the left side on this cross member here, and it was 20 5/8, and so half of that is 10 5/16. So I made a center mark there, 10 5/16, and I measured over this side to give myself clearance for the cables, and it was 8 something. I've got it written down over there. So I could measure from the center line on this piece of paper over that distance to make my first line. On this side I give myself 3/4 of an inch, and that was like 9 1/4 or something like that. So I measured that over and made my line there on this paper. And then down at the bottom, I made it the full width, which was 20 1/2, and made my line there 20 1/2, and then drew a line from one to the other to make the diagonal, and then give it a 3/4 of an inch on that for the flange. The flange would be like that. And I actually took those papers and cut them on the sheet metal shear, and broke them on the shear just like you would a piece of aluminum. So made nice straight cuts, and everything came out just the way it would on aluminum. So now I'll fit in the two side panels, the left side and the right side, and the poster board is not long enough to make one continuous piece out of it, but that'll actually be easier to handle anyway. I'll be able to make I'll make one piece, and then make a second piece and just glue them together to make one large piece. We'll get the template laid out for part of the first side piece, and you can see the front part of it is 15 3/4, and then here it's 13 3/4, and then it tapers down to nothing to match that angle on that back panel. Now the way that I did that, see I've got 17 3/4 measured here. Now the way that I did that is this piece of paper, poster board, is 28 inches long. It's 22 by 28. So I measured over here 28 inches. So this is the long section from the top of this baggage compartment. This direction is the longest portion. So I measured to here 28 inches. And then because these are not parallel, it's these taper apart from each other, we'll just assume that this line here, or take this line as the set point, as the 0 point, and it's the level line. So I put a square on this longeron, and then took a rule and run down square from this longeron to where it intercepted that lower section down there, and measured this. That's where I got the 15 3/4. And then I took a square and put down there on that corner, that lower corner where the angle starts up, and I put the rule and I brought it up square from this line, from that corner down there, square to this longeron here, and made a mark there. and those two marks, the distance between them was the 17 3/4, and then the distance from this line here down to that point down there was 13 3/4. So if I cut those out, that should match. Now I want to add about 3/4 of an inch or so for a flange on this upper side. The bottom side I don't need a flange on because it's going to a bend on, because it's going to fit flat up against that angle that's welded in down there. I screwed up on my layout. I forgot to put the 3/4 inch for the flange for the bend allowance on the top, and I went ahead and put it on the bottom, so it's going to come out okay. It's not going to make that much difference. Yes, it is. It's going to make a difference because this line here is not going to be 13 3/4. Well, so anyway, I screwed that up. Now there's a cutout that has to be made here. There's a bar cross member that goes in right here, goes through right here. So I have to make a cutout for that cross member. Well, what I did is I measured down 3/4 of an inch, because that's going to be the flange bent over, and then the cross member is a 1/2 inch, so I brought it down a 1/2 inch there, and we'll just cut that notch out with the scissors, and then we can fit it in there. Well, I can bend the flange, and then we can fit it in there and see how it goes. There's that piece fit in there, and it fits in pretty good. By screwing up on where I put my flange, it screwed up my measurements. It screwed up everything on that, on the measurements, so where I put that cutout for that cross piece wound up, well, the first being 3/4 of an inch off, and the great big hole in there is my fault because I screwed up and cut the wrong side of it to correct for it the first time. But anyway, it's 3/4 of an inch off. Back here it fits up real nice against that flange, and that angle is just perfect, but it's also just about 1/4 of an inch or a little bit less, a little bit too tall. So I'm going to have to trim, I guess, 1/8 of an inch off of it, something like that, to get it down. See, it fits underneath this door frame just right, but it's got it needs to support that piece of plywood, that floor, that upper floor. So that upper floor slides underneath that door frame too. So in the aluminum, there's just not going to be enough room. It'll bulge that out a little bit. So if I take a little more than about an eighth of an inch off of that, then that should work out just fine. I didn't like the way that first side panel template I cut came out. I made a mistake on the flange for the bend in the top, and I went ahead and marked it on the bottom instead, and thought, well, that, it'll all come out even, but it didn't come out even. And it kept compounding the errors. It's looking okay if you don't look at it too close, but when you start checking it out, it's just not quite right. So anyway, I laid it out again. So I've got it all laid out now, and I'll go ahead and cut this piece out and see if we can't get it to work. And I laid this one out reverse of what I laid the other one out. I've got this one with the lines on the side. That the other one I laid it all out the other way, so when I went to make the bends, the lines were on the wrong side of it. So this way all the lines are on the outside, so the bend lines will be where they'll go underneath the brake, instead of having to transfer them over to the other side. I like this one a lot better. It came out a lot nicer. It fits up really nice, really nice. So that's good. Now I don't know whether to do this side first or the other side first. I think I'll keep working on the other side there. Make another piece on that side. That one won't be quite as much problem. It's got to come through and be cut out. I put a double bend in that piece there for that side panel. See the double bend in it. The reason I did that is because this is going to be 16 thousandths aluminum, and it's pretty light and flimsy, and it's not going to be as light as flimsy as this paper is, but it's still pretty light, and some of the weight of that upper baggage compartment floor is going to rest on this, especially underneath that door flange, and it's going to be weakened some by that cutout there for that cross member that happens to be right there in that door flange. So anyway, I put a double bend in that. It's 3/4 of an inch over and then half an inch down, and that should strengthen that lip up. Since there's angles on this everywhere you look, this lower floor angles down, and this everything, the distances between all these points is different in every position on here, so we can't really just take measurements willy-nilly here. So what I did is I picked out this this upper longeron as the datum line, and I take all my measurements off of it. Like I said, this one is a fix. This is a fairly straight line, pretty straight line, and this is a straight line on this floor too, but it goes away from the upper longeron there. So try to, and you can't just go like from here to the longeron and measure that, because the angles of the floor change all over the place. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to measure from the corner of this this lower baggage compartment, the door, and that's where I'm going to bring that, maybe it'll come out just a little bit farther forward than that, but I'm going to bring that panel out this far, and it'll be cut out around this baggage compartment, but it'll attach into this frame around the baggage compartment, and then the next panel for this right side in the baggage compartment will fit over the top of that, or they'll fit together. So what I want to do here is I want to make sure I get a nice measurement and find a point to measure to on my piece, because my piece is square. So if I come up to this, and that's the joint between that baggage compartment floor and the aft baggage compartment floor, I'll put my square on that. Put my square on that longeron, and then square up this rule with this square, and then this point down and this point down here that I want to measure from, and then I'll make a mark right there at that intersection, and that's how long I want that next piece of paper to be. Will be right to there, and that's how long my initial cut on my aluminum will be, is right to there, and then I'll measure that out, and I want that down, so 18 inches. So that's going to be 18 inches right there at that point. And I already know that this other point back here, where that other piece of paper goes, is 15 3/4 inches. So now if I get this measurement from where this piece of paper ends to here, then I'll have my start of my layout. And so that is 25 inches. So I want to give myself a little bit of overlap there. So we'll go 26 inches. That way the paper will overlap on those two pieces. And that's a square edge going on that piece, and we'll have a square edge on the other one. So we've got 25 inches. 25 inches right there. Now that's good, because that paper is 28 inches. And we got 18. I'm going to write those numbers down. I've got this piece of paper down, and I know what my measurements are. So I'm going to measure exactly 26 inches, but I'm going to make one mark here, 1 inch from this end, because that's going to be the overlap. So that line there will be where my measurements start from. And then we'll go here to 26, and go up to the other end, the top edge of the, line that rule up. We got 1 inch and 26 inches. Measure that, mark it off. I'll mark this one off. inch and a quarter, 3/4 and a half an inch, 19 1/4, and this line is 15 3/4, so I've got to go 3/4, which is 16 and a half, and then another half, which would make it 17. Yep, that's right. That gives me an inch and a quarter right there, so there's 17. So now there's my diagonal line. Now I need to come down here and make my bend lines. Okay. So now I can shear this off. I can shear this end off here, and then I can shear this off down here. This is my cut line right here. And then my bends are up here on this end. Right now there's my paper, and it's cut out, and I made my bends the wrong direction on it. It's got to go the other way. No, I gotta make my bends the other way. Oh well, at least I know where they are. Okay, that's a little better. That should fit in there now. Looks good. Now this will be cut out and bent in around instead of like that. So probably right there, I'll take that bend out of there. Okay, we'll take that bend out of there. There'll be a slight bend in that as it comes out of that bay to come over and bear in with this right here. Okay, there's that. That looks pretty good. That'll work. Well, there's what it looks like from the outside. Not that that means anything. Got a nice flange there that we'll be able to put nut plates in. Yeah, and there's what it'll look like on this side. It'll be a little bit easier to trim out around those openings. Take a little bit more care for that. But you can see that one doesn't have to be quite as low as that. So we can get a little bit of duct tape and stuff and clean that up, but yeah, that looks pretty good. The right side is done, and I'm pretty happy with that. The way it looks, at least for the templates anyway. It might not be done, but the templates are done. Now the left side is a little bit more of a challenge because it's got to come out here far enough, but it's basically going to be doing the same thing, except it's just going to have more of a flange bent over on it to clear these control cables. So the first thing to do is just like we did before, is I've measured over 28 inches from this corner over here, the rear corner, and now we'll take a measurement there, see how far down that is to the 15 3/4 inch. So it's just the same as the other one, 15 3/4. And then now I'm going to need another measurement here, because I need to not only find, well, 13 7/8. Okay, now I can 13 7/8. Now if I measure from there to 10 inches, And then I want to get how far out that is from the inch, 1 inch, 1 inch over. The first piece on that left half or left portion is in there, and it turned out pretty good. I put an inch bend on the top of this, and then there's a 1/2 inch lip on that bends down, but the control cables there, they don't touch it at all, and they're pretty close to where they're going to be lined up. They might be a little bit closer to the fuselage side than they are to the baggage compartment side, because they're not exactly in these blocks that they're the guide blocks that are going to go on there, and the pulleys, they're tied into the pulley holes on the tabs where the bolts go to attach the pulleys, and not lined up with the pulley themselves. Now, one thing that I didn't think about here, I run into a little trouble cutting out the relief for these this cross member, and I didn't anticipate that cross member. I thought, I just think it goes straight out from this longeron here, but it doesn't. It goes straight across to the other side, so there's an angle to this where it goes across there, and that's why that when I first put it up there, I had to go cut it out again, because I just went straight here. And so anyway, that cross member is at an angle. So that's a 1 inch lip with a 1/2 inch bend over on the lip for added strength. So I'm pretty happy with the way the things are looking so far. Well, I got patterns made for the rear baggage compartment, rear lower baggage compartment, and I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out here. It looks like it's going to work out pretty good. So that was the last one. There was the forward part of that rear baggage compartment, and I may need to round that out a little bit there where that flap pulley goes. But I think it's going to be okay. I think there's plenty of clearance there, but I can round that out a little bit, tweak it a little bit, and a little bit of material yet to come off of that, right around that weld on that little cluster right there on that diagonal strut. But all in all, it looks pretty darn good. This side I'm real happy with, and we got this cut out here around the pulley, and then this little cluster here, this diagonal. But then the way it was, it pulled that out too far away from this this side over here. So by running that bend at an angle from where this comes out right here of that cluster, and I bent that at an angle there, and it comes in tight against this trim right here now, and that's where the baggage compartment, the forward baggage compartment trim goes. It screws into this and then bends down there. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, because I don't really need that tab down there, because that baggage compartment's not going to come out this way. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. Maybe cut that off, I don't know. And that side over there is trimmed out nice around the baggage compartment door, and then the forward, the next section of trim will come back past that and pull that in and hold that in. So that looks really good. I'm really happy with that. So we can pull those patterns out and transfer them onto some aluminum and cut them out and get them to fit. Oh yeah, looking really good here. I can make them come out. There's a couple little things I got to do. Trim this flange off a little bit here, so it sticks up into the lower portion of that floor. And yeah, looking good. See that side over there? I cut the flange off there just behind that cluster, and then started pulling it in and pulled it in flush against the tubing on that side. but that side doesn't have the control cables on yet. Now this side, I've got plenty of clearance for the control cables in the back portion of that, and then it comes up here, but this is where the baggage compartment would be anyway. But these cables look like they're a little bit close there, but once you get this block in here, this guide block in here to hold those cables in, there'll be plenty of clearance around them, and this flap cable is looking good. So I'm happy with that, the way it's turning out there.